Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Book 13 of the Wheel of Time series, The Towers of Midnight. So, as always, this is going to be a completely spoiler-filled review and discussion, because if you are looking at a video that is on Book 13 of a 14-book series, then you either have already read it or you really don't care about spoilers. So yeah, this video definitely has spoilers. So with that being said, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So as always, I'm going to go through this in kind of a character order. I'm going to talk about different characters and, talk about their part of the story as a framework. So first of all, let's start off talking about Rand. Since the last book, we left off with this huge epic moment for Rand where he basically was on, it's just so much happened in that moment. He was basically in like almost a suicide moment, like where he was ready to end the entire world. And then it just kind of all broke and he kind of got back to himself, and then that allowed him to basically merge with his past life of Lews Therin. So now he's just in this epic zen state. So he's just really calm and cool, but like feeling full scale emotion and stuff again. So he's just this like so much cooler person because he's just so zen level, and he has like these Jesus level effects and stuff. He just causes like minor miracles and stuff to happen. So when he comes down from Dragon Mount, when he finally leaves the top of the mountain and stuff, he goes and he ends up at a farm where this farmer has like a bunch of apple trees and stuff like that, and he's basically just having kind of a general conversation because the farmer didn't really know who he was immediately, and he's talking about like how the apple trees aren't blooming and stuff, and the ones that did bloom are like rotted and stuff, and like so everybody has no food and everybody's hungry and stuff, and he basically just like Rand kind of looks at the trees or whatever, and they just like all start blooming really fast. They bloom perfectly ripe apples and stuff, like perfect apples, and like so now they have this huge harvest and stuff, and they like start immediately going to pick them, and Rand's like, yeah, you should probably pick those pretty quick because I don't know how long that's going to last, and he like goes to leave and stuff. So he's just like having these incredible effects on the world because of where he has like mentally, where he has come to, the place where he is now mentally. So I think that's a really cool thing. Like he does this again later in another situation where he goes to one of the cities that he's like conquered and stuff, and the city is on like that close to a full-on riot. Like there's supplies that were being brought over by the sea folks, but like they're still in the harbor and stuff. They can't empty the ships because all of the food that they had on the ships are rotten. Like everything's gone bad. There's no one in the city that actually has any food. So like it's just all chaos is about to break. Like so it's just like super close to just utter and total bedlam. And Rand basically goes to the sea folks ship after basically apologizing to the Aiel and stuff about not letting them to do like what they're supposed to do, about like his slight and stuff, and like he's just communicating with everyone better, and like he's got everything just so focused. He's so much more fun and interesting and just so about it now. So I'm just like having a lot more fun. But he goes on to the sea folks ship and stuff, and they're basically explaining to him like, yeah, all of our stores that we have in here, all of this stuff is rotted. Every bag we open up has like rotten seeds and like has bugs in it and all this kind of stuff, and we just don't have any food. Like so he's like, Dragon Reborn, like you need to do something or whatever, like figure some stuff out because this all is about to go to pot really fast. And Rand just kind of casually walks over to one of the bags, opens it up, and then just perfect golden seeds come out. Like all the grain and stuff is perfectly ripe and like perfectly healthy and stuff. And Rand just like plays it off all casual and stuff. It's like, oh, you were just looking in the wrong bags. Like all of these are fine now, like because he just of course had this effect and made them all like perfectly ripe and ready for harvest and everything. So I thought that was just really cool, and like just this nonchalant way he's going about doing it, I think is really cool too. And similar with this even happens with like the tea and everything. Everyone in the previous book and stuff is talking about how the tea is going really bad and it's like really stale and stuff, and it's like immediately it tastes terrible. But then we get comments in this book when people are near Rand, they're like, the tea tastes really good today. It tastes better than normal and stuff. So like he's having these kind of interesting effects on all kinds of stuff. Basically all the Dark One's influence that's kind of destroying the natural world and stuff having these effects. Rand kind of reverses them to a magnified degree. Like he reverses it, but then he takes it up a notch. So I just really like the fact that that stuff is happening. It's really, really cool. And like, so now he's like kind of in a state where he's trying to help people. He's trying to do better. He's trying to like be the Dragon Reborn proper and everything. So he goes to one of the situations where he already has people fighting. They're already fighting Trollocs and stuff. And like the last battle has basically begun for them already. And Rand basically opens a gateway and goes out onto the battlefield by himself with just 2 Aiel warriors with him. And he's just massacring people. It is so cool. Like he just takes out all these Trollocs and Murdral and stuff. He's opening up those death gates and stuff where he just opens a gateway to nowhere and stuff. He's just dropping them in there. He's weaving lightning and fire and like earth and just all this stuff. And then we got other Ashaman commenting on it, like they've never seen that many weaves used at one time and stuff. So like they're all just mind blown. And Rand just like does this epic crap. He just takes out thousands upon thousands of Shadow Spawn in like no time at all. And then comes back and like, whew, I'm tired. Like, okay, it's like I can't really do that anymore because I got to save my strength for like the final battle. So I thought that was really cool because that kind of told me, because in my head I was like, he should be able to just wipe out everything. He should be able to, because he's clearly the strongest channeler, period. So like they like it seems to me like he should be able to just take out all the Forsaken. He should be able to take out all the Shadow Spawn and all that kind of stuff and just kind of, you know, wipe the slate clean and stuff. But he brings up this idea of being incredibly tired and stuff, and like just using that much magic and stuff apparently drains him in like a specific kind of way, because he talks about he needs to have all the strength ready for the final battle, because his plan is to break the final seals on the Dark One's prison in order to do everything he's trying to do. We don't really have all the specific details yet, but that is his plan essentially. And I think it's really, really cool. It makes sense. You got to kind of shatter the old setup that was keeping him bound, especially if you want to recreate the binding situation, or if you want to just fix it all, because I imagine he's going to do like a total fix and like all of that kind of stuff, and it's going to be hunky-dory, and then we can basically start a new age of legends and stuff in order for that to go bad, and then all comes back around to this all over again. But so all that's happening is like really, really cool, and I just dug it and stuff. And Rand's story was actually pretty short here because, you know, as always with Jordan stuff, like he focuses on different people in different books, and this book is a very huge focus on Perrin. And Perrin was originally my favorite character, and still kind of is in concept, because like I will always love werewolf stuff regardless. And like I think like a lot of the just bits about his character is still really interesting. So to a degree, still my favorite, but he's definitely not my favorite to read about anymore. Like this whole plot line that he's been through has like knocked him down so many levels. Just the way his character has been treated, the way his character development has gone along, his character arc itself, I think is done not very well. So I guess, yeah, that'll be a lead in into Perrin. Let's just go ahead and talk about Perrin since he's a huge part of the book, but I feel like it'll be fairly easy to talk about. So the trial of Perrin Ibarra. I think it is so stupid. I think this entire plot is incredibly stupid. We're bringing up something that is incredibly hard to remember. Like, it took me a good while to even try to conjure memories of the stuff that happened in that book. And that was like book 2 or something when he killed the children, or no, I think it was book 1 when he killed the children of the light or whatever. And just, like, and, you know, he did it because he was like his connection with the wolves and stuff. He was kind of in rage mode and berserker mode and stuff. So like all of that kind of stuff, like I barely remember it. I don't care about it because it was justified in the moment and stuff, and it kind of made sense, so I never really thought too much more about it. So to then bring it all back and have all these white cloaks basically bitching and moaning about it when we know they have such prejudices that don't make any sense. They're like calling him Darkfriend purely because he's got yellow eyes and stuff. So like I didn't like any of it. But by the end of the arc, I kind of realized this entire trial is not about Perrin's character development. This is not Perrin's character arc. This is not for him. This entire trial, so the very big majority of the book is all so that we could get Galad, was it? Or Gawyn? One of the Trakan brothers, the one who's the leader of the White Cloaks now. This is basically all in an effort to get him to not see the world in black and white the way he does, in order to be, so he can understand nuance and he can see subtleties and stuff in the world and understand, you know, situations have, you know, more, there's more to most situations and stuff like that. So I kind of realized that at the end. I'm like, so the bulk of this book was really to inform on the character development of a character that has been almost entirely absent and has been basically annoying the entire time he has been here. The last time I liked either one of these brothers was when Mat kicked their ass, like randomly way back when he just used his staff and just embarrassed both of them in the street. Like, and then they forced him into it. That was the last time I enjoyed their existence at all. So the fact that this plot that should have been a lot of Perrin is actually all for this other character that I don't care about is the biggest disappointment ever, especially since I've been just waiting for Perrin stuff. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. So apart from the trial, though, we actually do get the actual character development for Perrin that I wanted. We get almost exactly what I predicted before about him needing to find the balance between, you know, humanity and the wolf and everything like that. So he eventually finds the balance and everything through a whole lot of training. He's in the wolf dream, and he's basically begging Hopper to, you know, teach him to master the same stuff from last time. And Hopper, you know, not being able to directly communicate the way I articulated it or whatever, like, left him really confused. So he was like butting against it and all this stuff and rejecting the training and stuff like an idiot. And so eventually in this book, he basically realizes because Slayer, another deep pool from books and books ago, I completely, well, he's kind of mentioned in the previous book, but like previous to that, I'm like, like I had no memory of it. I completely forgot about all of that. Like it didn't stick with me that well. It didn't feel like a huge arc. It honestly felt like something that kind of happened and then just kind of like whatever, and we just kind of moved on, especially since it's so many books and it feels like so much time since that stuff happened. So it's just really hard to care about it at all. But I think a lot of the stuff that did come from that was awesome. So I didn't care for Slayer. I didn't care for the guy who's I can't pronounce his name, but that guy who's working for the Chosen or whatever. I don't like his whole situation like at all. I just didn't like any of that, and I really hate that he killed Hopper again, so Hopper doesn't get to get reborn. So like that really super sucks, like he's dead. But the whole thing of like Hopper training with Perrin and going into nightmares and stuff so that he can learn more about the dream world and master it and everything, I thought all that stuff was awesome. I thought it was so cool that like in the dream world you're basically invincible, like as long as you have like a very good sense of self and your mind is strong enough to manipulate the dream and stuff like that. So I just think that was really cool. But my issue is, why did this basically happen as a montage while it's sandwiched in between someone else's character arc that is basically in disguise as Perrin's arc? Like it kind of really bugged me. I'm like, there are other plots that we've been dealing with that are very quick, fast, in a hurry kind of things. Like even the White Tower split, the Bowl of the Winds, the kinswomen, and all of that kind of stuff. All of that situation was dragged out for books when a lot of that stuff could have been handled really quickly, and it just wasn't. But we get something that I feel like needed to breathe. It needed space to grow and develop and like have us get more attached to what's going on than just happen the equivalent of a montage, really. And it kind of blows my mind that it happened like that, and I really hate that it happened like that, because like the person that was like my favorite character is getting the shaft as a result of it. Like the way we got so much training with was it Elayne? With Elayne and the wise women and stuff, when she went through all that training, how she was getting taught about Teleron and stuff, like all of that, like it makes sense. It totally set up her fight with the Black Sisters and the other Forsaken and stuff in the dream world. It set that up perfectly. But I don't understand like why, when she was going through that training, why didn't we have Perrin going through similar training? That would have paralleled their arc, which would have kind of made sense considering how they started off together when everybody split off in the very beginning. So like you could parallel it to some of the dynamics that they had there, and then like continue to show his training and give it the time that we needed, and then allow us to get reattached to Hopper and stuff, so that, you know, because he was inevitably going to die. And then it would just totally make so much more sense when they interact with each other in the dream world. It would have just worked so much better, because when I think about it, I feel like Elayne should have been the master that Perrin immediately was. So there's a point. The Slayer's entire like plan, part of his plan, is to use a dream spike, which is a terangrial that basically makes gateways impossible in a given area. Like you can't use a gateway to get out of the circumference of this of this dome that it puts down, basically. So similar in the dream world, you can't just because in the dream world you can just outright teleport, so you can't just teleport from place to place when you're within that dome. So Perrin eventually is fighting Slayer to get the dream spear dream spike while Egwene or Elayne is fighting the dark sisters at the tower, like in the dream world in general. They end up kind of going all over the place in the tower and all that whatnot. But so when he takes it from Slayer, he realizes he can teleport from like one end of the bubble to the other end of the bubble. So by doing that, he ends up moving the dome really far away so that his army can open up gateways so that they can get away, because he realizes that this whole situation is basically a trap. The whole thing is basically just a setup in order to keep him in one place so that he can be vulnerable to an attack. So they eventually do that, and he gets it far, far away, and he ends up basically teleporting leaps and bounds all the way to the White Tower, which is the same place where Elayne and all the Dark Sisters were. No, because that's where Egwene and all the other Dark Sisters and stuff were. They were already at the White Tower. Because I'll talk about Egwene, like it'll be a lot of overlap, so I'm going to kind of jump into that in a second. But so when Perrin eventually gets there, the dome is now over the White Tower, so the Black Sisters can't get away. So even within the dream, they're all confined in this one area. So all the other Aes Sedai that was a part of Egwene's plan that she was trying to set up and lure the Black Sisters and the Forsaken out, she was trying to lure them all out. So it kind of goes off without a hitch. They're jumping around, this really cool fights and stuff, and they're killing them off and everything. And then like there's a situation where one of the Forsaken shoots balefire at Perrin inside the dream, and because he's so sure of himself and so in control of the dream and stuff, he basically just wipes it away. Like he completely null and voids and disregards balefire, which I thought was amazing, because I thought that would be one of the weaves that would break the rules of the dream world and would just work like regular outside and stuff. But the logic of the dream world and stuff like usurps everything. So there ends up being a situation between Perrin and Gawyn, kind of like a mini little reunion between them, which I think is cool. It's like a mini reunion for them, where she's like, why are you here? I don't know why you're here. And she basically tries to tie him up in air in order to like leave him there in order to come back to him or whatever. But he's like, like, because he's in the dream, so all the weaves are just weaves or whatever. They don't mean anything. So he just dismisses them and all this stuff, and dismisses this, and like, it just completely blows her mind, like makes her completely amazed by it. But it has an instant payoff. She kind of realizes, like, yes, in the dream, everything's malleable, no matter pretty much what's done, unless it's like a physical person coming physically into the dream, then it's, it's mutable. It can be changed. It can be warped or whatever. So I like the way that came about, because she ends up going up against Masana, the Forsaken, and she basically does the same thing that they did to Moradin, I believe it was, and like the way they use the dream world to imagine a idom on her in order to enslave her. So the Forsaken does the same thing to Egwene, does that same thing. And of course she's having terrible flashbacks of when the Shan Chan captured her and everything, and like she's getting freaked out, but then she kind of thinks about what Perrin said, basically what he was saying. Like, this is just a dream. Like, it's a dream. Like, it can be changed, it's all malleable. So she basically just solidifies herself, reminding herself she's the Amyrlin, she's an Aes Sedai, and like all of that means, all the baggage and everything that comes along with that and everything. So it kind of makes her really self-assured and everything. She basically just makes the thing not work anymore and just kind of gets out of it and saves herself. But the Forsaken, yes, and after she basically gets out of the idom, Egwene basically uses that same logic and just forces the will of their minds into direct confrontation, essentially, and it basically shatters Massima's mind, or Messina. I think that's the priest's name, Massima. Masana, yeah. It kind of shatters Masana's mind, and like now she's drooling and stuff, and she's brain dead basically. So she ends up knocking her out. So I thought that was really cool. So Egwene had even some cool stuff. I think that was the coolest thing Egwene did in the story. So one of the other like big part of what Egwene is really doing is she's trying to gather armies and stuff in order to stop Rand, because Rand's plan to break the seals on the Dark One's prison. She thinks that's a horrible idea. It's the madness speaking. He's insane. So she's basically hoping to get a whole bunch of armies together, because Rand said basically, meet me in the fields of this one place so that we can just, you know, talk about it, whatever, and I'll tell you about the rest of my plans and everything. So she's basically setting up, like getting a whole bunch of people, getting the giant armies together in order to basically try to tell him, stop, don't do this. We can't do this or whatever. So she's hoping the show of force will help make that point, basically. So I think that covers Egwene, Perrin, and Rand. Do I have anything else I want to say about them? Egwene's the Amyrlin did that kind of cool stuff. I guess I will talk about Egwene's boyfriend, Gawyn or Galad. One of the Trakan brothers, the other one. So last book, he really super annoyed me because he was overly pushy and stuff, and he wasn't respecting the Amyrlin seat and everything, and he was just like being way too pushy to Egwene and stuff, and it was just really annoying. It was like insanely annoying. So in this book, he's basically doing the same thing. He's like sleeping outside of her room and stuff. He wants to be her warder. He's still being really pushy. He's not really directly respecting the seat that she holds. He's not respecting her position of power or anything like that. So it's the same kind of thing. But then he ends up going to actually talk to other people. And one of the I believe it's Bren that actually says it. He basically tells him, go get a life. Like, a woman's not going to want to be with you if your entire obsession, your entire point in life is just to be there for her, or just to, be with her or whatever. Like, so he's basically saying, go get a life, and then, let her kind of like you, and not just like what you can provide or whatever, which is the whole sentiment I completely agree with. I'm like, yes, somebody finally gave this dude some good advice, and he actually followed it. Like, he left Tarvalin, he went to go see his sister, he went to go see Elayne and stuff, and was basically going to hash out the thing, because he's supposed to be like her primary bodyguard, technically, by their, family traditions and everything with the royals and whatnot. So he's basically going to go talk to her and hash all that stuff out, and he's like, yes, I kind of do, understand that I have been too pushy and all this stuff. But the thing that kind of annoys the crap out of me is that we see that development, right? We get that development, and that he understands he was being too pushy and everything. But then he goes to find out that the assassins that have actually been killing the sisters in the towers wasn't the Black Sisters or a Forsaken like Egwene originally thought, but they're actually special assassins sent by the Shan who want to kill her and stuff. So he ends up finding that out, but she doesn't directly know it. So he's like, oh, I got to get back to the tower, because these people, like, their whole thing is like the other deaths were basically just practice. So when they actually do go after the main person they're going to go after, they leave like a bloodbath. So they were going to kill a bunch of people. So he's freaking out. He's like, I'm the only person that knows this stuff, so I got to go deal with it. And this is after he's already run into Egwene's room and tripped her wards and stuff, and got tied up in all her traps and everything that she had. So he's basically gets a gateway, go back to Tarvalin, and then immediately goes to her room and sees an assassin basically about to go into her room. And like, he kind of thinks about it like, oh, I could be messing up her traps again, but that assassin could also be leaving her room after having killed her. So he ends up in this fight. He ends up in the fight in the dark with like 3 assassins, and they have terangrial that allow them to basically be hard to see. They kind of blur in shadows and stuff. So he's fighting them in the dark, can't see them, unfamiliar with their fighting style, and still is able to kick their asses. So it's proof that he's a badass fighter. He deserves to be a warder. He's actually really a good fighter and everything. But the issue that I have with this whole situation is, it's like, it feels like a justification for his terrible behavior previously. It's weird, because it's like he was this close to learning a lesson about, being too pushy and stuff, and give people like their space and like wait to be asked and all that kind of stuff. But then the story and the situation kind of justifies him being overly pushy, overly in her face, constantly forcing his protection on her. Because granted, when he was doing all that stuff, he had no idea that it was Shan assassins and stuff. And he was just being overly pushy, overly in her way, and like overly trampling over her position as the Amyrlin seat and stuff. So the fact that it kind of works out in this way kind of annoys the crap out of me, because it justifies his behavior in this kind of roundabout way. And then as a result, he's injured and stuff, and he's hurt, and there's like nobody around close enough for Gawyn to like get him healed, and she's not good with healing pretty much at all. So she bonds him as her warder in order to get him that advanced healing, that, you know, healing factor that they kind of have, so that he can be better. And he's like, I guess it's kind of proof that he does learn his lesson, because he tells her, even at the cost of him dying, he's like, I don't want you to bond me if you don't really want to bond me. Like, I don't want it just, you know, as a method of you trying to save me or whatever. And she's like, no, I do want to bond you, and I want to marry you, and blah, blah, blah. So, like, that kind of wraps up their whole situation. So now they're together, and they're bonded, and they both do understand the depth of the feeling they have for each other because of that bond and stuff. But even though their entire relationship is based on her incidentally seeing in his dream that he was dreaming about her, which she then immediately fell in love with him as a result, that whole situation is just like, ugh. But yeah, I am severely disappointed that it does feels like some sort of tacit like explanation or justification for his behavior previously, when I really didn't care for his behavior, and I don't think he did enough to make up for it or to go prove that he has his own life, like that kind of thing. So I don't really care. I don't like the Trakan boys. I don't like either one of them, Gawyn or Gawyn, and I can't tell them apart immediately. So like, oh, I don't like them at the moment. And Morghese is like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of okay with Morghese. The way, because Morghese ended up being the person to oversee the trial of Perrin. So I kind of, like, everything she did made sense. She was already slightly resentful of him because of the Lord thing, and technically he's a vassal of hers or of Elayne's because they're in Andor. So, like, by him declaring himself Lord or other people declaring her, it's kind of a, you know, it's not done. Like, he could technically be killed. It's treason and all this kind of stuff. So she already had issues, but her ability to come in impartially and actually pronounce him guilty, which results in basically it becomes like a non-issue, because the ultimate sentencing for Perrin is to fight your hardest at Tarmangaiden and eventually like pay 500 gold pieces or whatever. Like, it's really nothing. It's just such a nothing thing. Like, that's why the whole thing is all about the brother and not really about Perrin's arc. So, yeah, I think I've covered a lot of that, so now that will just be rambling little details. So let's go ahead and talk about Mat a little bit. Mat had a very minor part in the story. He had, like, most of the ending of the story, but there's some other good stuff in there. So Mat finally resolves his situation of dealing with the golem. The golem. I'm going to call it a golem, more like, you know, the thing of Jewish folklore, like the golem, because... not other than Gollum, like, because it's, you know, it seems like a created thing because it's like unkillable, you can't really hurt it and all this kind of stuff. So Mat ends up luring it to I think Camelin, wherever they were. He ends up luring it there and like get it in the situation where he's fighting and everything. And I was thinking like, okay, because he's got a couple of the copies of the medallion, because he let Elayne use the medallion, his Foxhead medallion. They made a deal because he needs to use her Bellfinders to make some more of these cannon things that him and Aludra pretty much invented. So he needs, like, that help. So part of that exchange, that deal, so that they could use the people in her city, he lets her study his medallion that, like, kills weaves and all that stuff. So she ends up making a couple copies or whatever and gives some to him. So he's got some wrapped around his weapon and stuff and got the necklace and everything. So I was just really thinking, okay, so he's got multiple ones and they work in the same way. So he's going to be able to, like, I don't know, shove it through its head or something like that and actually finally kill it. So I was just really into the fight, and like he was kicking ass, and like he was telling his bandit red head people like stay away and everything. And then like he kind of does this rope-a-dope thing wherein he ends up pushing the golem through one of the gateways that the Ashraman created, and he it wasn't a gateway, it was a skimming gateway. So basically he's not on the platform and he just falls into the empty black space. So the only way to get rid of this unkillable thing is to basically drop it down a bottomless pit is the equivalent. I thought that was so cool. I thought that was a nice little culmination of that story, because I was kind of getting sick of it, the fact that it just kept showing up and stuff was going after him. The only thing that I honestly complain about is the fact that Mat did, like, he really felt so bad about the thing killing Tylan. And I hated her so much because of all the rape and everything, like, obviously. But the fact that he still felt so guilty about it, I'm like, you don't need to feel guilty about it. But in truth, that was, like, his only real Like, that was the only real example of that thing really doing him any true harm like that. Like, had that thing killed Oliver or someone else, it would be the same situation, and I would understand that more. But that was the closest person that he personally knew that the Golem had killed. So I guess I understand why that was the person to be like the motivation and stuff. I kind of get that. So, but I don't like her. I'm happy she did. That Golem could rip her head off again, and I'd be totally okay with it. But so the big thing that's going on with Mat, of course, he got that letter. Tom had the letter that basically tells him Moiraine is alive, and so he's basically planning the trip to the Tower of Genji. He's getting everything together while they're doing all this other stuff, and he still hasn't opened that freaking note from the Aes Sedai, which is kind of annoying to me because it's like, given after all the Varen reveals, after learning everything about Varen and everything, and then understanding she gave him that letter and stuff, I'm like, open it. Like, for the love of God, open it. It's nothing bad. It's only going to be helpful. Like, it's probably very necessary information. So Mat held on to it for so long. Like, it's been well over that month or whatever that he even said that he was going to wait. And, like, he still hasn't opened it. He goes all the way to the Tower of Genji without having actually opened it. And ironically, like, Oliver, so this is what Oliver's purpose is. Instead of just giving Mat a surrogate child. So his entire purpose has been him playing that game about the foxes and the snakes and all this stuff. And apparently that game was giving him hints, was giving Mat hints as to how to get into the Tower of Genji, because the game and stuff he's playing is all derived from people in the past who knew, how to deal with all that situation and everything, with the elephant and eelfin and all that stuff. So I guess that was his whole purpose. So it seems interesting. I wonder if he's going to do something more in the next book, but it kind of justified his existence in a way, and I kind of appreciated it because he's really just so extra. He's just like an extra little kid. But it kind of works out in such a way where it kind of helps them later. But something about Mat's story I really did like, though, when he and Elayne started, like, when they got back together kind of thing, when they started hanging out a little bit. Like, I love, like, how immediately familiar she was with him and stuff, and how she's kind of, like, used to his cursing and everything, and she takes it as an endearment and everything. I just liked all that interaction. That's basically how I've been feeling it, like it should have been for the longest time. Like, this is how all their interactions should have been forever. And it kind of bugged me, like it wasn't really like that, especially like with the women versus the men and all that stuff. But like, we're actually getting to see it now, so I kind of appreciate that. So it's cool. I like a lot of that stuff. But like, Mat's so petulant. I think Mat is actually my favorite to read about. Like, Mat has easily become my favorite. I love, like, all of his stuff. It's always funny and charismatic and just like kind of enjoyable, and like, I really understand his mind a lot, so I really kind of dig Mat. I think Mat, like, Perrin is my favorite on principle, but I think Mat has become my favorite. And second to him is probably Nynaeve, because Nynaeve's growth as a character is amazing. Is to literally a character who I could not stand and I despised, like, for a while. Now I love her to death. Like, it's crazy. It's so crazy. So let's go ahead and talk about Nynaeve real fast. So Nynaeve doesn't have a whole lot to do in this story. She's, kind of a side character a lot. She's not one of the big main focus characters. But what we do get is really interesting. So she, Gawyn is now Armelin and everything, and she's basically telling, her friends, like, y'all got to take the test and become official Aes Sedai. They need to swear on the oath ride and all this stuff. Like, so she's trying to get her and Elayne back and stuff. And Elayne is pregnant, so she doesn't know, taking oaths on the oath rod, because her channeling is already wonky or whatever with the pregnancy. So she doesn't want to, like, risk taking the oath while she's pregnant. So that's basically been put on hold. But Nynaeve's like, I'll go back and do the 100 weaves. I'll go do all the stuff or whatever. So she goes back, and because she knows all the weaves, she's been practicing them and all this stuff. So she's like, whatever. So we then, she goes through her test, and the test is similar to her accepted test, where she goes through these, like, illusion situations, and she has to make the right decision or whatever in those situations, like, for the test. And she basically blows through this test doing all these situations, but she does it like Nynaeve. She doesn't hold that Aes Sedai calm or anything. She eventually gets, real emotional and starts running and everything, and really fighting and everything in these situations that she's going in. When the object of the test was to remain all stoic and emotionless and walk from place to place, even if it's like a, heart-wrenching situation and stuff, and you need to get there quick and everything. So it's just like, the test is like an interesting showcase of what the Aes Sedai prioritize, and then we also get to see what Nynaeve we can see what Nynaeve prioritizes, and that kind of showcases her character growth in a lot of ways. Because when she became accepted, she was basically willing to knock everything else out the way to go become Aes Sedai and stuff. She was willing to ignore all the stuff around her, but in this one, she almost missed her exit and stuff by like focusing on trying to stop everybody and everything, and she ends up using Balefire and stuff, which I thought was going to destroy the entire scenario, the entire simulation or whatever. I thought it would like bring all of it down, but it didn't and stuff. So she comes out of the test and everything. The test is so much harder like than it would be normally for everybody, and like, and the whole one of the main reasons why it's harder is because Egwene was there, and she basically wanted to make sure that she's not showing favoritism. So she added stuff from Emond's Field specifically and stuff, and like added stuff from Winter's Night, and like just went extra hard on Nynaeve, trying to not show favoritism, and basically Nynaeve still kills it and stuff. But like the other Aes Sedai are like, you ran, like technically you kind of failed because you didn't keep the calm and the composure and stuff. And Nynaeve like, man, skip y'all. It's like, if I'm in a situation, and I like, her memories were altered and stuff too, so she didn't really know she was in a test. She's like, if I'm in a situation where stuff like that is going down, like I'm going to go run to help kids. I'm going to go fight and stuff to save land. I'm going to use Balefire against Darkhounds because that's the only way to actually kill those freaking things. So like, she's like, no, I'm going to actually do this the way that I did it in there. I'm not going to pretend the world doesn't matter. I'm not going to hold this weird stoic calmness and all this kind of stuff when it's unnecessary. Like, because the priority is to protect and to serve and to do all of that kind of stuff, not just to keep up this visage of perfect unfazed kind of Aes Sedai or whatever. And I thought that was really, really cool, because that's one of my biggest issues with the Aes Sedai is like they're so overly removed and stuff like that. They're so their farts don't smell and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of bugs the crap out of me. Like, so the fact that she would acknowledge that and actively go against it is one of the things that made me like love her so much. Like, I think she's one of my favorite characters now, undisputedly, because like it makes so much sense. It felt like such a real world reaction to these kind of people. And I'm like, yes. And then they even tried to get her to promise to never use Balefire again. She's like, no, like we're about to go into the last battle. Like, are you stupid? Like, why would I ever like tie my hands in this gigantic battle that we're about to go into? Like, why would I leave a weapon off the table when this is literally the fight for the world? Like, no, y'all are insane. So they basically all have to just capitulate and be like, yes, you passed or whatever. And like, she took her oaths and stuff. But I like, even after that, her pride and everything. Like, she has this conversation with Egwene, and Egwene kind of brings up, like, how did it feel when you became Wisdom? You were a really young Wisdom of Emond's Field and stuff, and, trying to get people to respect that title and everything. Like, how was it dealing with that? And she was, telling the truth, like, it was real hard to deal with, and, like, my best advice for you is to, like, don't let anybody, even your friends, like, shirk the rules and all this kind of stuff, because then it destroys your, your clout as this person and all this stuff. And she's like, okay, and it takes Nynaeve a minute to realize she's like talking about her, because Nynaeve hasn't really respected the fact that she's Amyrlin and everything. So I thought that was just a really clever way to do it. It kind of showed that Egwene had even learned, and it showed that Egwene knows Nynaeve so well that she was able to get Nynaeve to reach this conclusion on her own. So like, now she's calling her mother and everything, and she's been like a good Aes Sedai in that way and everything, but she's still Nynaeve. So I think the growth of Nynaeve is just so well done. Probably some of the best character growth and development in the entire series, apart from Rand. But Rand's, I put an asterisk next to Rand because there's a lot of magical influence on his development. But as just a regular character, as person development, I think Nynaeve is the best in the entire series. It's crazy. Well, I guess we're already talking about Nynaeve. Let's talk about Lan. Lan almost didn't do anything in this book. Lan basically just kept complaining that there was more people that wanted to fight for Melchior. And I'm like, dude, like, you're basically on a suicide run. Like, you can't win, and you just want to die alone. Like, is that what it is? You don't want to even try to put up a decent fight. Like, it's the last battle. Like, all these people that are trying to march with you or whatever, trying to ride with you, like, why are you even trying to turn any of them away? It takes them literally to the entire book to be like, okay, everybody, let's go with me. Let's rise the golden crane or whatever the thing was, and like, let's just go. So now he's got his whole squad behind him, and they're marching officially with purpose and with all that stuff. So that was his kind of thing. So I'm okay. But I think a lot of the development of these characters, a lot of their progression and stuff is really showing in this book. But I love it and I think it's cool, but a part of me has a real big issue with the fact that this is happening so last minute. So much of this stuff could have been like sprinkled through the last 4 books or so. And like it would have just, I think it would have made the series itself feel a lot more. Because right now, to me, I'm getting a lot from the end. I'm getting like a big chunk, like a really good meal at the end of the series of these last few books. And then there was a lot of exposition, a lot of world building, a lot of learning stuff early in the series. But like all the middle feels like this empty space of just nothing. Like when I think back on it, it just feels like things that don't have huge impacts, that don't influence everything, stuff that could have been done in different ways and for different reasons, all kinds of stuff. So I think the structure of this series has like a lot of issues. I think a lot of events could have been slid in earlier, and some could have been drawn out, and some could have been shortened. There's like a lot of, I feel like there could have been a lot of interesting like edits made. Well, it's a lot of this is hindsight too, so it's really hard to like say something like that. But in hindsight, I feel like a lot of these events could have been shuffled around and changed, lengthened, shortened, just modified in such a way to make the entire series a very consistently enjoyable read through with a great crescendo. Because so far the crescendo is pretty good. We're really getting there, like, you know, because obviously the last book's coming up, so like, we're really getting there now. But I want to go ahead and talk about the last 2 characters so I can go ahead and wrap this up. I don't want this video to be like an hour long like the last book was. But let's talk about Elayne real quick. So Elayne is, you know, she's an Andor and stuff. She's basically doing Game of Thrones. She's just Game of Thrones lady right now. She's planning on going to go get the other throne that Rand basically promised her, but she's doing it in such a way that I think it's really clever. She's basically getting the noble people to, she's giving lands from Andor to some of the noble people from that place so that they'll have stakes in both locations, so they can basically fight for her right to take that as well, because on her dad's side, she has a claim to that throne as well. So she's like doing that. She's got making these like very cool political, like Game of Thrones level maneuvers and machinations and stuff. Same way she kind of did with Mat. So when the Band of the Red Hand shows up, he needs her bell finders in order to make these explosives and stuff. And she's like, well, we can do that, but we get to keep them as the throne and as the crown. We get to keep some of them, and you keep some, but also you get to do this if you basically sign a 1-year contract and fight for the throne. Basically, she's trying to condense and coalesce all these people. She's got like multiple mercenary armies and stuff like that. She's just trying to keep all these people together to be a gigantic fighting force to help with the last battle. And I thought that was so brilliant, because that's something that I wouldn't really thought of. But like the way she's holding all these people together, I think her maneuvering is just really, really well done. It's a lot of fun. But as a political strategist, she's really cool. She's really smart. But just as a general person, she keeps doing stupid, reckless stuff. Like, I don't get it. She is so holding on to men's viewing that she just, like, now she kind of, a little bit of, you know, chip has been taken out of that armor. Like, she's been thinking she's completely untouchable and invulnerable as a result of men's viewing. But now, like, she got stabbed and stuff dealing with some of the Dark Sisters and whatever she was trying to find. Like, she basically dresses herself up as what I guess she assumes the Dark Sisters see as their liaison for the Dark One or whatever. And she like dressed up like a Murdral or something like that, using illusion weaves and stuff, trying to get information from one of these Dark Sisters. And I think, actually, no, it's not wrong. When I was going through, when I was reading it, I thought that what the lady was saying about the invasion and stuff, I thought she was lying to her just because she realized that this isn't, you know, Shadow Haram or anybody like that. She realized it was probably an Aes Sedai tricking her. But then it just occurred to me just now that because of the letter Mat had, that invasion part they were talking about was accurate. She actually, that was legit. So all of that was true. But like, that ended up in the situation where she ended up having to fight other Black Sisters. And every time she goes near them, the other ones show up. I don't know why that keeps happening. It's like she's talking to ones that should, she's talking to ones that should be alone, but then other ones will show up. I'm like, okay, that's second or third time that's happened. But so she ends up in a situation with the fight and stuff, and she ends up getting stabbed and she gets hurt. And like the children and stuff are okay, and she gets healed and it's all fine. But it shakes her a little bit. She realizes, okay, I need to be a little less reckless. I need to, you know, actually accept having guards and stuff, have other people watch my back and everything. So it's cool that she learned that. I appreciate that she learned that, so that the dragon doesn't, you know, his kids can make it know and stuff. So that's cool. And I think the last thing I want to talk about, is, well, I want to talk about Mat's letter first. Let's talk about that letter first. So the letter that he's basically hasn't been reading is a letter that says that there is an impending invasion on Andor, on Elayne's people, basically. And she's like saying, because it's so funny too, because in the letter she's like, Mat, knowing your curiosity, this letter probably didn't last a couple days. She's like, but if I don't come back, then that means that I'm dead. So, and if I'm dead, then there's probably going to be a giant invasion of shadow spawn that are coming to the city to wipe them out and everything. So Mat doesn't even actually read this. He's off in the Tower of Genji at this time, and it's actually Ulver that takes it out the envelope, and then Talmanis, I believe, is the one that actually reads it. And then like they start to freak out and have to deal with that. Oh, but also Mat goes to the Tower of Genji. Mat, Tom, and somebody who apparently is Jane Farstrider, who I for the longest thought was a woman. And so it just kind of confused the crap out of me, because it's Jane or Jane, something like that. Not Jane, Jaine. Like, so it's like, it's, or Jain, I believe. Like, so it's totally different pronunciation and everything. And I thought it was a lady. I thought it was just like, one of Brigitta's friend. I mean, I guess technically kind of is Brigitta's friend. Whatever. But like, so I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. That's an interesting little reveal that he was Jane. But he ends up being the sacrifice, because you send 3 people in the tower like that, somebody's going to die, and it's not Mat and it's not Tom, so it had to be him. He basically got left behind and was sacrificed and stuff, and they end up like having to fight the Elfin and Eofin and stuff a little bit. And they managed to get more Morgaze. They managed to get Moraine out and stuff and save her, but all at the cost of Mat having lost half the light of the world or whatever, which is a really clever way of them stealing his eye, because they fucking took his eye out. Like, holy crap. So Rand lost a hand and has stab wounds that will never heal. And now Mat has one eye and hang a nooseman's scar on his neck. Perrin is the only one that's going to get out of this still pretty, isn't he? I think if Perrin doesn't just outright die, which I don't think this is the type of series that's going to kill any of the mains. But if he doesn't die, then he's the only one that gets out of this, like, with a crown, a hot wife, cool eyes, and like all of his limbs and stuff. So like he kind of gets off scot-free if that's the case. I don't know, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny when I was thinking about it. Like, so yeah, but I thought that was cool. Like, we got, so Moraine is back, Moraine is alive, and basically she said Lanfear is dead, but I'm pretty sure Lanfear is not dead, because if they didn't kill Moraine in that way, then Lanfear is definitely not dead, even though she said that they fed off of her power, because apparently those things can feed off of the ability to channel, I guess. So like it fed off her too quickly and killed her, and they were going slow on Moraine. That's why there was time to save her. But I'm pretty sure Lanfear is not dead. Because we've had hints that she's even been out and about and been around as another person. So I'm pretty sure Lanfear is not dead. But so I want to go ahead and wrap this up, because this is actually about going on an hour. So the last thing I want to talk about is Aviendha. A character who has been basically minor, has been relegated to the side and everything for a long time since she became a wise one, since she left Elayne and like had to go back to the threefold land and stuff. So she goes back to Ruidion to, finish her wise one training, basically. And Aviendha, using her power with Terangrial, she basically uses the glass pillars or crystal pillars or whatever. She I think she kind of accidentally tweaks it a little bit. So instead of just seeing the Aiel's past and seeing the true history of their people, whatever, she ends up seeing the future. So she sees up to her grandkids, I think, great mother. I think great mother is either mother or great grandmother. I can't tell. So she's one of those step downs or whatever. And she sees like the Aiel have been basically obliterated. Like they are less than a shadow of who they were before. And like this is all post the last battle and everything. Like their people have basically been completely abandoned, and they have like no G anymore. Like their honor and stuff is gone. They're getting constantly hunted by the Shan-Chan, who's just taking everything over. And it's just like, it feels like they lost, but they didn't. So it's just like, it feels post-apocalyptic in a way. It's just, so much of it bugged me. So much of it bugged me. Like, they just make an offhanded reference to the Dragon Reborn having bowed to the Crystal Throne and stuff. I'm like, if Rand bows to the Shan-Chan, if he literally has to bow to the Shan-Chan, I will be mad. I will be mad. I will be pissed. I will be so pissed off if this series ends with slavery still being a thing, and if Rand bows to the Shan Shan, it will basically kill the series for me. I think it will really piss me all the way off, and I don't know if I'll be able to get over it. Because no, that is just unacceptable. It is completely, utterly unacceptable. Only if Tuan was like to admit, oh, I have the capability to channel. All the Suldam and Dumani like have the capability to channel. So by them being the slave master, they're basically being hypocrites because they have the capability to learn how to channel. Because in order to deal with that, you basically need to be able to see the weaves and stuff. So it's like their ignorance plus their prejudice against people with magic or whatever and their weird cultural situation causes terrible, terrible thing. And it's like there's just not enough being done to just completely stop it. And then in general, yes, I understand they all have, you know, channelers and stuff, so it's hard to go into direct battle with them and everything. I just, So, yeah, if this series ends with the Shan Shan still having slaves, or if Rand has to bow to the Crystal Throne for even bullshit prophecy reasons, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be severely disappointed, and I'm not going to like it. So I just really, really don't want that to happen. I need that not to happen. So yeah, to end it on a very rambly, kind of hyperactive note, I'm going to go ahead and end it with that. We got Moraine back. Perrin had a crappy arc. Nynaeve is now my favorite. Gawyn is kind of cool, kind of cool. Elayne is still being goofy. I don't like her brothers. Tom and Moraine is getting married because apparently that was a thing. So that's also weird because like what the show is going to do. So is the show just going to like ignore the Tom and the Bryn thing? Like, is it just, or is the fact that Moraine got kind of banished from the White Tower in the show, is that an official breakup with her and Swan? So maybe they'll end up with dudes later? I don't know. So just the way the show is doing is just kind of, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because this video is going on very, very, very long. So yeah, let me know what you all thought about Towers of Midnight in the comments down below. I did not enjoy this one nearly as much as I enjoyed book 12. I think Brandon is doing a really, really good job of adapting a lot of Robert's stuff because there's a lot more fold arms over bosom. There's a lot more sweat dripping down their breast and stuff and sweat tints and stuff. There's a lot more of that kind of description and stuff that Robert Jordan did a lot more than Brandon did in the previous book. So he definitely hit his stride, I feel like. And Matt still, he kind of feels more familiar than he did previously. So I think that's kind of improved a lot. So I really enjoy it. Let me know what you all thought about this. How do you think Brandon did with the continuing Robert stuff? And do you agree with me on some of the structure of this series is so clunky and so unnecessarily unneeded? Like, it's done in such an unneeded way that the series could have been improved, that some stuff was just moved around. It just moved around. Let me know if you agree with that thought in the comments down below. So as always, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.